The desert wind howled through the cracked windows of the old trailer, carrying the faint scent of sagebrush and regret. It was just past midnight in the forgotten outskirts of Reno, where the neon lights of the Strip faded into endless miles of dust and despair. Inside, 8-year-old Ethan huddled in the corner of his bedroom, his small frame trembling not just from the chill, but from the echo of his father's raised voice. The boy's legs, twisted by a birth defect that left him reliant on crutches, dangled uselessly as he clutched a worn, stuffed bear, its fur matted from years of desperate hugs. The argument had been building for weeks, bills piling like sand dunes, the weight of medical visits crushing what little hope remained. But tonight it shattered. "You think I signed up for this?" His father, Marcus Hale, bellowed from the living room, his voice raw with whiskey and frustration. Marcus, a former mechanic whose hands were calloused from engines but gentle once with his son, paced the linoleum floor, scarred by dropped tools. He'd lost his job at the garage months ago, drowned in debts that no overtime could fix. Ethan's condition demanded therapies, specialists, costs that gnawed at their savings like rust on metal. "I can't do it anymore, kid. You're holding me back." The words hung in the air, sharp as a knife's edge. Ethan pressed his ear to the thin wall, tears carving paths down his dust-streaked cheeks. He didn't understand it all, but he felt the finality, the way his father's boots stomped toward the door. The screen door slammed, a gunshot in the quiet night. Marcus didn't look back. He tossed a duffel bag into his rusted pickup, the engine coughing to life with a reluctant roar. Headlights pierced the darkness, sweeping over the trailer like a farewell glare, then vanished down the gravel road. Ethan waited, breath held, for the truck to return. Minutes stretched into an hour, the only sound the distant hum of coyotes. When dawn's first light crept through the blinds, painting the room in pale gold, he knew, abandoned. The word tasted like gravel in his mouth. He dragged himself to the window on his elbows, crutches forgotten in the panic, and watched the empty road, whispering to his bear, "Daddy'll come back," he promised. Miles away, in a dimly lit bar on the edge of town, Daniel Hawk Riley nursed a black coffee, the steam rising like ghosts from his past. At 45, Hawk was a legend among the Iron Vipers, a motorcycle club forged in the fires of Vietnam vets and lost souls seeking brotherhood. His face, weathered by sun and scars, one jagged line across his left cheek from a bar fight in '89, told stories he rarely shared. A faded tattoo of a soaring eagle peeked from under his leather vest, symbolizing the freedom he'd chased since losing his own family to a drunk driver 20 years back. That night had birthed a promise, to stand for the forsaken, to ride for those the world left behind. The Vipers weren't outlaws in the Hollywood sense. They were guardians, their Harleys thundering like thunder for justice in a cynical world. Hawk's phone buzzed on the scarred wooden bar, cutting through the low murmur of pool cues, clacking and classic rock humming from the jukebox. It was 2:47 a.m., the witching hour when secrets surfaced. The caller ID read unknown, but the voice on the other end was frantic, a neighbor from the trailer park, an old-timer named Rita, who'd patched up Viper's wounds more times than she could count. "Hawk, it's bad. That Hale boy, Ethan, the father's split, left the kid alone, no food, no nothing. Kid's got those legs, you know. Can't even get to the kitchen." Rita's words tumbled out, laced with the tremor of someone who'd seen too much neglect. Hawk's grip tightened on the mug, coffee sloshing over the rim. Marcus Hale, he knew the man vaguely, a drifter who'd fixed bikes for the club once, shared a beer and a laugh, but promises broken. That was a line crossed. By 3:15, Hawk was on his iron horse, the V-bike's engine growling to life under the sodium glow of street lamps. He didn't call the authorities first. In his world, badges often meant bureaucracy, delays that hurt more than helped. No, this called for the pack. Texts flew into the night. "Rally at dawn. Trailer on Route 17. Kid needs us." The Vipers responded like echoes in a canyon, affirmatives from garages, homes and highways. Jax, the burly enforcer with a prosthetic arm from his army days, revved up from sparks. Lena, the club's sharp-eyed medic and widow of a fallen brother, loaded her saddlebag with supplies. 21 riders in all, engines syncing in a symphony of loyalty, converging as the sky bruised purple. As the sun crested the horizon, casting long shadows over the parched earth, the convoy rolled into the trailer park like a steel storm. Dust billowed in their wake, the deep rumble vibrating through the ground, waking the sparse neighbors who peered from curtains in awe and fear. Ethan, still by the window, froze at the sound, a thunder he'd only heard in stories. The lead bike pulled up, Hawk dismounting with the grace of a man who'd stared down worse than abandonment. His boots crunched on the gravel as he approached the door, knocking softly, the sound almost lost in the idling engines. The boy cracked the door, eyes wide as saucers, taking in the wall of leather-clad figures, their faces etched with quiet resolve. You're the motorcycle men," Ethan whispered, voice cracking. Hawk knelt to his level, the morning light glinting off his silver rings. "Yeah, kid, we heard about your dad. He made a promise once, long ago, to folks like us, said he'd always look out for his own. We're here to remind him." It wasn't just words, it was a vow renewed, the kind that bound souls tighter than blood. As the Vipers formed a protective circle, offering water, blankets, and a gentle hand to help Ethan to his feet, the air hummed with unspoken redemption. This ride wasn't ending at the trailer. It was just beginning, a promise to chase down the father, to mend what was broken, and to show a scared boy that family wasn't always born, but chosen, forged in the roar of engines and the heat of dawn. The morning sun climbed higher, turning the trailer park into a haze of golden dust motes that danced like fireflies in the heat. Hawk's voice, gravelly yet warm, cut through the low rumble of idling engines as he extended a hand to Ethan. The boy's fingers, small and tentative, clasped onto the calloused palm, a bridge across the chasm of abandonment. "Easy now," Hawk murmured, his eyes, steel-grey and steady, locking onto Ethan's wide ones. The Vipers dismounted in unison, their boots thudding softly on the parched earth, forming a living shield around the trailer. Lena, her ponytail swinging like a pendulum, knelt beside the boy with a bottle of water and a granola bar from her pack. "Here, champ, you look like you could use this." Her smile was the kind that cracked through storm clouds, born from years of stitching wounds and mending hearts in the club's makeshift clinic. Ethan sipped slowly, his crutches propped against the doorframe, the metal glinting under the relentless light. The air smelled of hot metal and faint exhaust, mingling with the earthy tang of the sagebrush that bordered the lot. Neighbors emerged cautiously from their own weathered homes. Rita first, her apron dusted with flour from an early bake, wiping her hands on it as she shuffled over. "Told you they'd come, Hawk," she said, her voice a mix of relief and weariness. "Kid's been through the ringer, no note, no call, just gone." Hawk nodded, his jaw tightening like a wrench on a stubborn bolt. Marcus Hale had crossed a line deeper than desert cracks. He'd shattered a vow not just to his son, but to the fragile code of men who'd once shared the road with the Vipers. Jax, towering like a redwood, with his prosthetic arm gleaming in the sun, scanned the horizon where Marcus's taillights had vanished hours before. "We track him down," he rumbled, his voice carrying the weight of old battlefields. "Club's got eyes everywhere, gas stations, motels along the interstate." The group murmured agreement, a chorus of loyalty that vibrated through the air like the aftershock of thunder. Hawk helped Ethan to his feet, the boy's legs wobbling but holding under the gentle support. Inside the trailer, the space felt smaller now, cluttered with unpaid bills scattered like fallen leaves and a half-empty fridge humming mournfully. Lena busied herself gathering essentials, a backpack with clothes, the stuffed bear, and a photo of Ethan grinning gap-toothed on a swing, Marcus's arm around him in better days. As they loaded Ethan onto Lena's bike, securing him with a custom harness she'd rigged for just such emergencies, Hawk pulled out his phone. The screen's glow reflected in his eyes as he dialed a contact labeled Eyes. It was Tommy, a Viper affiliate who ran a truck stop 50 miles east, the kind of place drifters like Marcus gravitated toward. "Hale's truck, blue Ford, dented fender. Seen it?" Tommy's reply crackled through. "Pulled in at 4, filled up, headed west on 80. Looked rough, man," muttering about starting over. Hawk's fist clenched. West meant the open road toward California, away from responsibilities, toward the illusion of escape. But promises didn't dissolve in the wind. They echoed, demanding reckoning. The convoy reformed, engines coughing to life in a symphony that shook the trailer's thin walls. Ethan rode pillion with Lena, his arms wrapped around her waist, the bear tucked into his jacket. The vibration of the Harley seeped into his bones, a rhythmic pulse that chased away the night's chill. Hawk led the pack, his V-bike cutting through the dust like a hawk slicing clouds, the club's emblem, a coiled serpent on a shield, flashing on every vest. They rolled out in formation, 21 strong, tires kicking up gravel that sparkled like fleeting stars. The trailer park shrank in their mirrors, a relic of pain left behind, but not forgotten. Rita waved from her porch, her figure blurring in the rising heat, a silent guardian in the wake. Miles blurred into a ribbon of asphalt under a sky stretching infinite and blue. Hawk's mind raced ahead, piecing together Marcus's path. The man had fixed bikes for the Vipers once, back when laughter filled the garage and beers clinked in toast to hard days survived. "Family first," Marcus had said then, slapping Hawk's shoulder after a long repair job. That promise, casual as it seemed, bound him now, like the oath Hawk had sworn after his own loss, to never let the Forsaken stand alone. Ethan, sensing the shift, leaned forward to Lena. "Are we going after Daddy?" His voice was a whisper against the wind. Lena glanced back, her eyes soft through her helmet's visor. "We're bringing him home, kid. Sometimes folks need reminding of who they are." The interstate hummed with traffic, semis barreling past, their horns blaring like distant warnings, but the Vipers carved their lane, a steel river flowing with purpose. Jax pulled alongside Hawk at a rest stop, the scent of diesel and fried food wafting from the diner. "Got a lead," he shouted over the din. "Motel clerk in Winnemucca says Hale checked in, paid cash, room 12. Hawk nodded, the plan solidifying. Confront, not condemn, remind, not destroy. As they pushed on, the sun beat down, turning the road into a shimmering mirage. But the bond forming in Ethan's heart was real, forged in the roar of brotherhood, a family rising from the ashes of betrayal. By midday, the convoy crested a rise, the desert unfolding like a vast canvas of redemption. Hawk felt the weight of eyes on him from the pack, trust as unyielding as their machines. This wasn't vengeance. It was justice wrapped in leather and loyalty, a promise to heal what the world had cracked. Ethan, for the first time since the abandonment, let out a small laugh as the wind whipped his hair. The sound carried away but etched in the riders' souls. The hunt continued, engines thundering toward truth. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The asphalt blurred into a hypnotic streak under the relentless Nevada sun. The convoy's engines a steady growl that drowned out the doubts whispering in Hawk's mind. Ethan clung tighter to Lena's back, his small hands fisted in her leather jacket, the stuffed bear peeking from the side pocket like a silent sentinel. The wind whipped past, carrying the sharp tang of sun-baked tar and distant rain clouds gathering on the horizon. A promise of storm in an otherwise unforgiving sky. Hawk rode point, his V-bike slicing through the heat haze, every mile a thread pulling tighter around the invisible web of brotherhood that bound the iron vipers. Jax flanked his left, the prosthetic arm steady on the throttle, while the rest of the pack fanned out in a V formation, shields of chrome and resolve against the world's indifference. Winnemucca appeared like a mirage on the edge of the desert, its low-slung buildings huddled against the wind, faded signs creaking in the breeze. The motel was a relic from better days, peeling paint on the stucco walls, a neon vacancy sign flickering weakly even in daylight. Hawk signaled the pull-off, the convoy easing into the lot with the precision of a well-oiled machine, tires crunching over loose gravel that sparkled like scattered diamonds. Engines cut one by one, leaving a heavy silence broken only by the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Ironic, Hawk thought, as if the sky itself was watching. Ethan slid down from Lena's bike, crutches handed over with care, his eyes darting nervously between the riders and the motel's shadowed doors. "Room 12, Jax confirmed, nodding toward the end unit, where a blue Ford pickup sat crookedly, its dented fender catching the light like a guilty scar. Hawk's pulse quickened, not with anger, but with the weight of what came next, a confrontation born of old oaths, not fists. He approached alone first, boots silent on the cracked pavement, the air thick with the scent of stale cigarette smoke wafting from an open window. The door to 12 was ajar, a sliver of dim interior revealing rumpled sheets and an empty whiskey bottle on the nightstand. Marcus Hale sat on the edge of the bed, head in hands, his broad shoulders slumped under the invisible crush of regret. The man who'd once laughed over engine grease now looked hollowed out, eyes red-rimmed from a night of evasion. "Marcus," Hawk said, voice low and even, like the rumble of an idling Harley. The father startled, looking up with a mix of defiance and shame, his calloused hands balling into fists that didn't rise. "Hawk, what the hell? How'd you find me?" The words came out rough, edged with the desperation of a man running from shadows. Hawk stepped inside, closing the door softly behind him, the room's stale air closing in like a confessional. "Doesn't matter how. What matters is the boy, Ethan. You left him alone in that trailer. No word, no plan. That's not the man who fixed my bike last summer, the one who talked about family like it was the only thing worth a damn." Marcus's face crumpled, the fight draining like sand through fingers. He rubbed his stubbled jaw, gaze dropping to the floor where scuffed boots mirrored his own defeat. "I couldn't. The bills, the doctors. Every day, watching him struggle, it broke me. Thought if I went, he'd get help from the state or something, better than dragging him down with me." The excuse hung fragile in the air, pierced by the truth Hawk knew too well from his own scars. Promises weren't conveniences. They were chains that held you upright when the world tried to bury you. Outside, the Vipers waited, a quiet force. Lena checking on Ethan by the bikes, offering him a story about a rider who'd overcome worse odds, her words weaving comfort like threads in a tapestry. Hawk leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his vest, the eagle tattoo flexing with the motion. "You made a vow once, remember? After that storm last year, when the club pulled you out of a ditch. Family first, you said. Ethan ain't just blood, he's your legacy. Leaving him, that's the real drag down." Marcus stood, pacing the narrow space, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, casting bars of gold across his face, illuminating the lines etched by choices long past. "What do you want from me? To go back and pretend? I can't fix this." Hawk's eyes softened, steel giving way to understanding. "Ain't about pretending. It's about showing up. Ride with us. Face the kid. Let him see you're still the dad who promised to stick." The door creaked open then, and Ethan appeared in the frame, crutches steady under Lena's guiding hand. The boy's eyes, wide with a mix of fear and hope, locked onto his father. The room seemed to shrink, the air charged with the unspoken ache of fractured bonds. Marcus froze, the sight of his son, a small figure silhouetted against the bright lot, hitting like a gut punch. "Ethan!" he whispered, voice breaking. The boy didn't speak at first, just stood there, the stuffed bear dangling from one crutch like a flag of truce. Then softly, "You came back?" It wasn't accusation, just a child's raw need for the promise renewed. Marcus knelt, the motion awkward in the cramped space, and pulled Ethan into an embrace that trembled with redemption's first spark. Hawk watched from the shadows, the scene unfolding like a slow-motion reel, tears tracing silent paths, hands clasping in forgiveness not yet earned but offered freely. Outside, the vipers shifted, sensing the shift in the wind, their loyalty a steady anchor. "Jax," murmured to Lena, "this is why we ride." The medic nodded, her eyes misting as she gathered the boy's things from the truck, the photo frame catching the light, a reminder of days unbroken. As the sun dipped toward afternoon, casting long shadows across the motel lot, the convoy reformed with Marcus in tow, his pickup trailing the bikes like a humbled shadow. Ethan rode with his father now, the cab filled with tentative words and the hum of the engine bridging the silence. Hawk led once more, the road ahead stretching toward Reno, not as hunters, but as healers. The desert whispered secrets in the rising wind, sagebrush bowing as if in respect, and for the first time that day, Hawk felt the weight lift, a promise kept, a family reforged in the fire of quiet courage. But the ride home wasn't without its storms. Whispers of complications lingered. Old debts Marcus had fled now circling like vultures, threatening the fragile peace. The vipers pressed on, engines thundering in unity, toward whatever truth awaited at the trailer's door. The highway unfurled like a silver vein through the heart of the desert, the late afternoon sun painting the sagebrush in strokes of amber and shadow. Hawk's V-bike led the pack, its engine a deep, resonant purr that synced with the rhythm of his thoughts, steady, unyielding, like the code that had pulled him from his own abyss years ago. Behind him, the iron vipers rode in tight formation, leather vests catching the light, their presence a thunderous testament to chosen bonds. Marcus's pickup rattled along at the rear, the cab a cocoon of halting conversation, Ethan's small voice weaving questions into the spaces between his father's sighs. The air rushed past, thick with the scent of heated asphalt and wild juniper, carrying whispers of the peace they'd forged in that motel room. But Hawk knew roads like this. They twisted when you least expected, testing the metal of every promise made. As the miles clicked by, Jax pulled up alongside Hawk, his massive frame leaning into the wind, prosthetic arm glinting like polished steel. "Something's off," he shouted over the roar, his voice cutting through the din like a blade. "Got a text from Tommy, word spreading fast. Hale's got creditors on his tail, the kind that don't play fair. Shady loan outfits from Vegas, probably." Hawk nodded, his jaw setting firm, the eagle tattoo on his arm seeming to flex in warning. Marcus had mentioned fragments in the motel, debts from the garage days, interest compounding like poison in the veins, the sort that turned desperation into flight. Leaving Ethan hadn't been just cowardice, it was escape from shadows that loomed larger than a father's guilt. The vipers weren't strangers to such storms. They'd ridden through worse, shielding brothers from the world's underbelly with nothing but loyalty and resolve. The convoy slowed as they neared a dusty turnout, engines idling to a low growl, while Lena circled back to check on Ethan. She rapped on the pickup's window, her face framed by the helmet she hadn't fully removed, eyes sharp with concern. Marcus rolled down the glass, the cab's interior spilling out the faint smell of fast food wrappers and lingering tension. "Kids holding up," he said, glancing at Ethan, who clutched the stuffed bear like a talisman, his crutches propped between the seats. "Thanks for everything." Lena's smile was brief, professional, the medic in her assessing more than words. "We're family now, Marcus. But those debts, we handled them together. No running this time. Ethan peered out, his face pale but curious, the vibration of the road having lulled him into a fragile calm. "Are we almost home?" he asked, voice small against the vastness outside. Hawk dismounted at the edge of the turnout, boots sinking into the sun-warmed gravel, the horizon a hazy line where earth met sky. The pack gathered loosely, a circle of weathered faces under the relentless light, some lighting smokes, the acrid curl of tobacco mingling with exhaust. Others checking maps on weathered phones. Rita had called ahead from the trailer park, her voice crackling over the line. "Social services sniffing around, Hawk. They heard about the abandonment, want to take the boy into care. But I told them the Vipers are on it. Family matters." The words landed like stones in still water, rippling through the group. Authorities meant well, often, but their red tape could strangle hope faster than any debt collector. Hawk's own past flashed. Nights dodging the system after his loss, the club becoming his anchor when blood ties frayed. Marcus stepped out of the truck, his posture straighter now, the motel epiphany lingering like dawn's first light. He approached Hawk, hands shoved in his pockets, the wind tugging at his faded shirt. "I didn't know it'd catch up like this," he admitted, voice rough as the terrain. "Started with a loan for Ethan's treatments, small at first, then the job went and it snowballed. Thought leaving would keep them off him." Hawk placed a hand on his shoulder, the gesture firm, grounding. "Promises don't snowball, Marcus. They stand. We'll face this at the trailer. Talk to the collectors if they show 'em the club's got your back. Ethan's not going anywhere but home." The words hung in the air, a vow etched in the desert silence as the sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows that danced like spectres across the sand. The ride resumed with renewed purpose, the engines revving higher, a symphony of defiance against the gathering dusk. Ethan watched from the cab, the bear's button eyes reflecting the fading light, his father's hand occasionally brushing his knee, a tentative bridge rebuilding. Lena rode close, her bike a guardian shadow, while Jack scouted ahead, eyes peeled for any sign of trouble on the interstate's curve. The air cooled as twilight bled into the sky, stars pricking through like distant promises, the scent of creosote rising from the warming earth. Whispers of confrontation stirred in Hawk's mind, not with fists but with the unyielding truth of brotherhood. The debts were vultures, yes, but the Vipers were the storm that scattered them. They crested the final rise toward Reno as night fully claimed the desert, the city's glow a beacon on the edge of darkness. The trailer park emerged, sodium lamps flickering like hesitant fireflies, Rita's porch light a steady welcome. But as the convoy rolled in, tires whispering over gravel, two black sedans idled at the lot's entrance. Sleek, anonymous, their drivers stepping out with the calculated calm of enforcers. One, a wiry man in a cheap suit, clipboard in hand, eyed the bikes with thinly veiled disdain. "Marcus, hail!" he called, voice slicing the quiet. "Time to settle up, or we take what's owed, starting with the kid." Marcus tensed in the cab, Ethan's small form shrinking beside him, but Hawk dismounted first. The pack forming a wall of leather and steel behind him. The air crackled with unspoken challenge, the night's chill settling like a veil over the fragile peace. Hawk stepped forward, his presence a quiet thunder, eyes locking onto the lead collector. "This ends tonight," he said, voice even, carrying the weight of oaths unbroken. "The boy's family. We pay what we can, but no one's taking him. That's the deal." The man smirked, but uncertainty flickered in his gaze as the Viper's engines idled ominously, a reminder that justice here wore vests, not badges. Lena scooped Ethan from the truck, carrying him toward Rita's open door. The boy's trust in her arms a spark of light in the tension. Marcus joined Hawk shoulder to shoulder, the first real stand since his flight. Words were exchanged, harsh at first, then negotiating, the clipboard yielding to the unshakable loyalty arrayed before it. No violence marred the night. Instead, a moral standoff, promises clashing like engines in the dark. By the time the sedans pulled away, tails between legs, the moon hung high, bathing the trailers in silver. Ethan sat on Rita's porch, crutches aside, a blanket around his shoulders, watching his father and Hawk shake hands under the stars. The debts weren't erased, but deferred, paid in installments backed by the club's network, a lifeline woven from brotherhood. Hawk felt the road's pull ease, the weight shifting to something lighter, redemption's quiet dawn. Yet deeper currents stirred, whispers of Marcus's past ties to shadier elements, hints that the abandonment hid more than financial ruin. The Vipers settled in for the watch, engines silent but spirits vigilant, as the desert night whispered of trials yet to come, binding them tighter in the forge of honor. If this story is touching your heart, hit that like button below. Your support helps us share more tales of redemption and brotherhood. The moon's pale glow filtered through the trailer park's sparse trees, casting elongated shadows that twisted like unspoken regrets across the gravel lots. Hawk stood on Rita's porch, the wooden boards creaking under his weight, as the last echoes of the sedan's engines faded into the night. The air hung heavy with the scent of cooling earth and faint barbecue smoke from a neighbor's distant grill, a reminder that life persisted even in the cracks of hardship. Ethan, bundled in the blanket, leaned against his father's side, his crutches resting like silent sentinels nearby. Marcus's arm draped protectively around the boy, the gesture tentative yet growing steadier, as if the weight of the evening standoff had anchored him to the spot. The Iron Vipers lingered in a loose perimeter, their bikes lined up like iron guardians under the sodium lamps. Engines silent, but the low murmur of voices weaving a tapestry of quiet vigilance. Jax approached Hawk, his prosthetic arm catching the moonlight in a silver flash. The big man's face etched with the lines of battles long past. "Those collectors backed off easy," he said, voice a low rumble that blended with the night's hush. "But they ain't done. Word from the boys. Hale's debts tie back to some Vegas outfit, the kind that launders through fake charities, might drag social services in deeper tomorrow." Hawk nodded, his steel-grey eyes scanning the darkness beyond the park, where the desert's edge blurred into infinity. He'd seen this script before, money's grip tightening like a noose, pulling good men into shadows they couldn't outrun alone. Marcus had fixed more than bikes for the club. He'd shared stories over late-night smokes, hints of favors owed from his drifting days, promises made in dimly lit back rooms that now clawed their way back. Inside Rita's modest home, the air smelled of fresh-baked cornbread and herbal tea, a warm counterpoint to the chill seeping through the screen door. Lena guided Ethan to the couch, her movements efficient yet tender, like a sister mending a frayed seam. The boy settled with a sigh, his twisted legs tucked under him, the stuffed bear propped on his lap, as if it held the night's secrets. Marcus followed, sinking into a worn armchair, his calloused hands rubbing together as if trying to scrub away the grime of his choices. "I never meant for it to go this far," he confessed, his voice cracking like dry timber. The room's lamplight played across his face, highlighting the stubble and the hollows under his eyes. A portrait of a man teetering on redemption's edge. "Started with a loan for Ethan's braces, thought I could pay it back quick. But the job dried up, and the interest. It was like quicksand." Hawk entered last, closing the door with a soft click that sealed them in from the world's prying eyes. He pulled up a stool, the wood groaning under his frame, and met Marcus's gaze head-on. "We all carry weights, brother. Mine came after the crash that took my wife and boy. Drunk driver, one rainy night on this same stretch of road. Vipers pulled me from the wreck, gave me a reason to ride on. You fixed my bike after that, remember? Said you'd never let a man drown in his own mess." The words hung in the air, heavy with the echo of old oaths, the kind forged in grease-stained garages and midnight rides. Ethan looked up, his wide eyes flickering between them, absorbing the fragments of truth like a sponge in the desert. Rita bustled in from the kitchen, plates of cornbread in hand, her apron dusted with flour like fresh snow. "Eat first," she insisted, her voice a no-nonsense anchor. "No fixing souls on empty stomachs." The group ate in companionable silence at first, the crumbly bread a simple communion, steam rising like ghosts from hot mugs. But as the night deepened, the conversation turned to the storm brewing. Jax relayed more from his phone, a tip from a Viper contact in Reno. The collectors weren't just thugs, they fronted for a network preying on folks like Marcus, twisting medical debts into chains. Social services had already filed a report on the abandonment, citing unstable environment, and a hearing loomed at dawn unless the club could prove stability. Marcus's fork paused midway to his mouth, the weight of it all pressing down. "They'll take him, won't they say I'm unfit?" His eyes darted to Ethan, who munched quietly, oblivious to the undercurrents, but sensing the tension in the room's thickening air. Lena leaned forward, her ponytail falling over one shoulder, voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "Not if we stand firm. I've got friends in the system. Nurses who've seen the Vipers help where badges couldn't. We'll vouch for you. Show the boy's got a family now, chosen and unbreakable. There's..." The words ignited a spark in Marcus, his shoulders squaring as he nodded, the first real resolve since his flight. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows like impatient fingers, carrying the faint howl of coyotes, a reminder that the desert tested all promises. Hawk rose, pacing the small space, his boots thudding softly on the linoleum scarred by years of hurried steps. Memories surfaced unbidden, his own brush with loss, the nights he'd ridden alone until the club's roar drowned the silence. This wasn't just about Marcus. It was a reckoning for every forsaken soul the Vipers had claimed as their own. "We ride at first light," he declared, voice resonating like an engine priming. "To the hearing, all 21 of us. Show 'em what loyalty looks like, not in papers, but in flesh and steel." Ethan perked up, crumbs on his chin, a tentative smile breaking through. "Can I ride with you again, Hawk?" The question pierced the room, pure and unfiltered, binding them tighter than any legal bond. As the group dispersed, Jax and Lena checking the bikes under the stars, Rita preparing a spare room, Marcus knelt before Ethan, the lamplight casting their shadows as one. "I broke my word once, son, but I'm keeping it now. No more running." The boy hugged him fiercely, the stuffed bear squished between them, a muffled sob escaping into the quiet. Hawk watched from the doorway, the night's chill nipping at his vest, feeling the subtle shift. Redemption wasn't a destination, but a road, winding and unforgiving. Yet deeper shadows loomed, whispers from Jax's contact hinting at Marcus's old ties, a favor unpaid that could unravel everything if the collectors pushed back. The Vipers settled into watches, engines cold but hearts burning, as the moon traced its arc, heralding a dawn where honor would clash with the system's cold machinery. The trailer park fell into a watchful hush, the desert's breath steadying like a held promise, but in the quiet, tensions simmered, ethical fractures widening under the weight of secrets yet to surface. Hawk lit a smoke on the porch, the cherry glowing like a distant star, exhaling into the night as the first hints of false dawn streaked the horizon. The ride ahead would demand more than loyalty. It would test the soul of their chosen family, forging it anew in the fire of moral dawn. The first light of dawn crept over the Reno skyline like a hesitant promise, painting the trailer park in soft hues of rose and gold that chased away the night's lingering chill. Hawk's V-bike idled at the edge of Rita's lot, its engine a low, reassuring thrum that synced with the awakening desert, The Iron Vipers assembled in the crisp air, 21 riders strong, leather vests zipped against the morning bite, the scent of dew-kissed sagebrush mingling with the faint tang of engine oil. Jax adjusted his helmet, the prosthetic arm clicking into place with mechanical precision, while Lena double-checked the saddlebags stocked with documents and resolve. Ethan, perched on the porch steps, clutched his crutches and the stuffed bear, his eyes bright with a mix of nerves and excitement. Marcus knelt beside him, ruffling the boy's hair, the gesture carrying the weight of vows renewed in the quiet hours before. "Ready for this, son?" Marcus asked, his voice steady for the first time in days, the stubble on his jaw shadowed by the rising sun. Ethan nodded, a small smile breaking through, the kind that lit up his face like sunlight on chrome. "Yeah, Dad, with Hawk and everybody." The words sealed something unbreakable, a bridge mended in the forge of the previous night's confessions. Hawk approached, boots crunching softly on the gravel, his steel-grey eyes reflecting the dawn's glow. "We ride together," he said simply, extending a hand to help Ethan to his feet. The boy leaned into the support, legs steady under the collective gaze of the pack. A family chosen, their loyalty etched deeper than any scar. The convoy rolled out as the sky brightened, engines roaring to life in a symphony that vibrated through the trailers, stirring neighbors to watch from doorways with quiet awe. The road to the county courthouse wound through Reno's waking streets, past coffee shops exhaling the aroma of fresh brews and early commuters glancing curiously at the steel river flowing by. Hawk led, the wind whipping at his vest, carrying whispers of the hearing ahead. Social services versus the unyielding truth of brotherhood. Marcus's pickup trailed close, Ethan waving from the window, the bear propped on the dash like a co-pilot. Deeper secrets from Marcus's past, old favors tied to the Vegas outfit, had surfaced in the night's watch, Jax's contacts confirming a ledger of unpaid debts, masked as protection loans. But the Vipers didn't flinch. They'd faced corruption's underbelly before, turning it back with the force of moral thunder. The courthouse loomed on the city's edge, a squat building of weathered stone and glass, its parking lot already buzzing with the hum of officialdom. The bikers pulled in with disciplined precision, dismounting in a wave that drew stares from clerks and lawyers spilling out with briefcases. The air smelled of exhaust and polished floors. The morning sun, glinting off windshields like watchful eyes. A stern-faced caseworker, Ms. Harlan, waited at the entrance, her clipboard a shield of bureaucracy, flanked by 2 security guards whose postures tensed at the sight of the leather-clad arrivals. "This is a formal proceeding," she stated, voice clipped as a closing door. "Family court doesn't accommodate entourages." Hawk stepped forward, his presence calm yet commanding, the eagle tattoo peeking from his sleeve like a symbol of flight unbound. "We're not an entourage, ma'am. We're family, and we're here for Ethan Hale." Inside, the hearing room was a stark chamber of wood-paneled walls and fluorescent hum, the air cool and impersonal, laced with the faint scent of old paper and stale coffee. Judge Elena Vasquez presided from the bench, her glasses perched on a no-nonsense face, the gavel resting like a silent judge. Ethan sat between Marcus and Lena, his crutches folded neatly beside him, the boy's small frame a poignant contrast to the room's gravity. The Vipers filled the back rows, a wall of quiet strength, Jax's bulk, Lena's steady gaze. The others' faces etched with the scars of lives redeemed. Ms. Harlan presented the case first, abandonment reports, unstable finances, risks to the child's welfare. Her words painted Marcus as a flight risk, the debts a noose around any future stability. "The state recommends temporary custody," she concluded, her tone laced with the system's cold efficiency. Marcus rose when called, his hands gripping the witness stand's edge, knuckles white against the wood. The light from the high windows slanted across him, highlighting the lines of regret and resolve. "I failed him once," he admitted, voice raw but unflinching, echoing in the hushed space. "Left in the night thinking it was mercy, but promises aren't disposable. They're what keep us whole. The vipers. They reminded me, tracked me down, brought me back. We've got a plan for the debts, club resources, steady work at their garage. Ethan's not alone anymore." He glanced at the boy, eyes softening, the bond visible like sunlight piercing clouds. Whispers rippled through the room, the vipers nodding in silent affirmation. Hawk took the stand next, his testimony a gravelly narrative of brotherhood forged in loss. "Lost my own family to the road once," he said, the words carrying the weight of 20 years' rides. "Vipers taught me redemption ain't a word, it's action. Marcus fixed bikes for us, shared our code. Now we're fixing this. We've deferred the collectors, lined up therapies for Ethan through our network. No more running." "Ms." Harlan interjected, citing the shady ties, but Lena countered from her seat, her medic credentials flashing like a badge of truth. "I've seen these men save lives where the system couldn't reach. Ethan's safer with us than in foster files." The judge leaned forward, her gaze sweeping the room, the air thickening with the tension of ethical scales tipping. As testimonies wove together, Rita's affidavit on the night's vigil, Jax's vow of protection, the room shifted, the bureaucracy yielding to the human pulse beneath. Judge Vasquez called a recess, the gavel's crack a punctuation in the suspense, but when court reconvened, her verdict rang clear. Custody to Marcus, with supervised support from the Vipers as an extended family unit. "Loyalty like this," she noted, nodding toward the back rows, "outweighs any ledger." Cheers were muted, but the Vipers' grins lit the space, a quiet victory etched in relieved sighs and clasped hands. Outside, under the midday sun that warmed the stone steps, Ethan hugged his father fiercely, the crutches clattering aside in the joy. The convoy reformed, engines growling to life once more. But this ride home was lighter, the desert wind carrying scents of freedom and fresh starts. Marcus loaded the truck, debts restructured through the club's leverage, the Vegas shadows retreating under the glare of collective honor. Hawk mounted his bike last, watching Ethan wave from the cab, the boy's laugh mingling with the revving motors, a sound purer than any engine's roar. The road stretched ahead, not as an escape, but a path forward, promises fulfilled in the thunder of chosen kin. Hawk felt the scars of his past ease, the eagle on his arm soaring in spirit. Redemption had come, not in grand gestures, but in the silent stand of family reforged, a legacy roaring into the horizon. Thank you for joining us on this journey of redemption and unbreakable bonds. If these stories touch your soul, please subscribe for more tales of courage and chosen family. We ride together.